Far from Earth, beyond the orbit of Neptune, a ship drifted silently through the dark space. It was large, larger than anything the Xenarith compact had ever seen before. No lights flashed, no weapons glowed. It simply floated, calm and quiet, as if it belonged there. The ship was called Eidolon. For the Xenarith compact, a powerful group of alien civilizations, this was not a welcome surprise. The area where Eidolon appeared was politically sensitive. It was near the border of two rival alien factions, a place no species was allowed to enter without permission. Yet here it was, a human ship. One single ship, no fleet, no radio signal, no request to land, just there. The Xenarith were confused. Humans, they believed, were a young race. Still emotional, still learning, still struggling to manage their own planet. Until recently, they had no faster-than-light, FTL drive. How had they reached this distant part of space? The compact decided to act carefully. They did not send a fleet or a warship. They sent a probe. It was small and quiet, designed to scan the ship from a distance and report back. The probe flew close to Eidolon. It scanned the hull, the shape, the energy fields, the internal structure. The results came back and made no sense. The ship's outer surface was smooth and made of an unknown alloy. Its energy signature was flat and unreadable. No engines were running, yet it was not cold. No weapons could be seen, yet there were signs of deep internal systems, like hidden rooms inside hidden rooms. The AI on the probe tried to understand the data. It couldn't. The ship looked like a warship but had no weapons. It looked like a research vessel but held no scientific equipment. It was something else. Something the AI had no category for. And then, Eidolon responded. No weapons were fired, no systems activated, but a signal was sent, a short message in the standard diplomatic code of the compact. Scanning without consent is a violation of peaceful contact protocols. However, we choose not to respond with hostility. We invite dialogue. The Xenarith Council was stunned. No human should have known that diplomatic code. It was invented by the oldest species in the compact and was never shared with Earth. The message continued. Send one representative. We accept peaceful discussion. Back. On the Xenarith flagship, arguments broke out. Some leaders believed this was a trap. Others thought it was a test. But the compact was too curious to ignore the offer. So they chose their finest diplomats. Ships were prepared. But when the message was answered, the humans made a strange request. Only one envoy will attend, civilian, no security needed. The aliens didn't know what to think. Was this arrogance or confidence? 2 days later, a human shuttle arrived. Small, round, and completely harmless looking. From it stepped a single person, Dr. K. Moreno, a cultural anthropologist from Earth. She wore a simple gray coat, held a tablet, and smiled warmly as she entered the meeting hall. The room was filled with some of the most powerful minds in the galaxy, leaders of science, law, and diplomacy. They watched the human closely. No guards, no armor, just calm eyes. Hello, Kay said cheerfully, speaking in perfect Xenarith neural cant, a high-level language only used in private council sessions. Every alien in the room froze. How do you know that language? Asked Chancellor Valen, his voice sharp and worried. Key gave a soft smile. We learned it. Your transmissions weren't as hidden as you believed, and your probe gave us everything we needed to finish the pattern. You allowed us to scan. We wanted to see how you would react, Kay said. And you reacted, predictably. The room grew tense. She continued. You assumed we were weak, primitive, that we came here by accident. That's understandable. It's what most powerful species do when they meet someone new. She tapped her tablet. But Eidolon didn't stumble here. It came with purpose. The Xenarith were listening now. Carefully. You've been watching us, Kay said, stepping slowly toward the center of the room. Ever since we lit our first signal into deep space. We know. And that's why we waited until now to say hello. Chancellor, Valen narrowed his eyes. What is that ship of yours? Why send only one? Kay stopped. Because Eidolon is not what you think it is. You scanned it but didn't understand it. That tells us everything we need to know. Her voice was gentle, but serious now. You saw a warship but it didn't attack. You saw no weapons but still felt afraid. That tells us a lot. About you. Whispers passed through the council chamber. Several diplomats looked unsure now. A few looked scared. You came here with control. You expected dominance. You wanted to decide what humanity could be, she said. Instead, we showed you Eidolon and let you decide what you saw. She turned back toward the shuttle entrance. And now we'll wait to see what you do with that decision. With that, Kay walked away, calm and silent, leaving behind a room filled with species that had never felt so uncertain. Outside the station, the massive Eidolon remained still. It hadn't moved. It hadn't spoken again. But everyone watching, it felt the same thing in their mind. This is not a mistake, this is not a scout, this is something that sees us and is waiting. Inside the Xenarith Compact's High Council, confusion and fear had begun to grow. The alien leaders had seen many strange ships in their long history, but Eidolon was different. It did not try to impress. It did not try to hide. It simply existed. And it waited. Dr. K. Moreno's visit had left a mark. The way she spoke their secret language. The way she smiled without fear. The way she said, "We let you scan us." It echoed in the minds of every leader present. Now, back on Eidolon, Kay watched her screen as data flowed in. She sipped her coffee, reading quietly. Captain Helena Rhodes stood behind her, calm and unreadable. "They're nervous," Kay said. "They should be," Captain Rhodes replied. The Eidolon's bridge was unlike any typical warship. There were no weapons panels, no alert sirens, just soft lights, interactive screens, and a quiet hum. It felt more like a university than a battleship. But everyone knew, this ship was not harmless. Back on the Xenarith flagship, Chancellor Valen called an emergency session. Scientists, military advisors, and data engineers all filled the chamber. The question was simple: what is this ship? "We ran another scan," said one of the science officers. "No defense systems, no attack systems. But the energy fields are unusual." "How?" the Chancellor asked. "There are layers," the scientist replied. "Shielding we've never seen before. Technology that bends known physics. It doesn't block our scans, it distorts them. It's like the ship is showing us what it wants us to see." The room fell silent. "It has no weapons," said General Quor. "But I believe that's the point." One of the philosophers from the Cultural Division stood up slowly. "I read the human envoy's words again," she said. "You saw a warship, but it didn't attack. You saw no weapons, but still felt afraid." The council members turned toward him. "What if the fear isn't about what the ship has?" he continued. "What if it's about what we feel when we see it?" Chancellor Valen frowned. "You think it's psychological?" "Yes," the philosopher said. "Maybe Eidolon is a message, a mirror." "But what is it reflecting?" someone asked. No one had an answer. Meanwhile, in a smaller chamber of the Xenarith diplomatic base, a few curious researchers reviewed the full scan of Eidolon once again. They zoomed in on strange sections of the ship, parts that seemed empty, but had oddly complex patterns in their internal design. One of the analysts ran a fractal scan. What appeared was not metal, not fuel, but data. Encrypted, multi-layered, and alive. Whole sections of the ship were storing information like a brain. Inside the walls were entire libraries, languages, history, music, science, philosophy. But some files were marked with warning tags by the ship's own defense AI, tags that blocked full access even through their own scan. Files with strange names: Project Afterlight, The Iron Reflection, Pandora Protocols. "What are these?" asked the analyst. "They're locked behind impossible codes," another replied. "Some are protected by ethical keys. You can't even read them unless you pass Some kind of test. Test? Yes. It checks your reasoning, your emotions. It won't reveal data if your thoughts are hostile or proud. The analysts stared at each other. A ship that judges thoughts? Back at the council chamber, the debate grew louder. Some leaders wanted to treat Eidolon as a threat. Others wanted peace. If this ship means harm, why has it not moved? Asked one ambassador. Maybe it's waiting for the perfect moment, said General Kor. Or maybe, Chancellor Valen said slowly, it's waiting to see how we treat it. The room went quiet again. Then, a soft chime rang. A new signal had arrived from Eidolon. It was a message, but not words. It was a recording. The council watched as a hologram lit up the center of the chamber. It showed a city, Earth perhaps many years ago. The sky was gray, buildings were broken. People walked in silence through a street filled with rubble. There was no war, just rebuilding. Then the scene changed. The same street, but 5 years later, the buildings had glass windows again. People smiled. Children played. Trees grew. Another jump. 10 years later, the city was bright, clean. Green towers rose high. Solar lights blinked. People of many cultures walked together. Then, one line of text appeared. We are not who we were. What will you become? The recording ended. No sound. No music. Just that question. On Eidolon, Captain Rhodes turned to Kay. They've seen it now. Kay nodded. Do you think they understand? Rhodes gave a small smile. Understanding takes time, but curiosity, that grows fast. Kay looked out the window at the stars. They thought we brought a warship. Rhodes sipped her tea. What we brought was a lesson. Back on the Zenareth flagship, the council sat in silence. One ambassador leaned forward and whispered, They showed us their past. No, Chancellor Valen corrected gently. They showed us our future, if we keep judging before listening. And, outside the ship, Eidolon floated, still impatient. It had said nothing more. It had done nothing more. But in doing so, it had said everything. The Zenareth Compact had faced many strange things across the stars, rogue AI, time storms, dying suns, but nothing had left them more confused than the silent ship Eidolon. It had not attacked, it had not moved, but it had changed everything. After, the human envoy Dr. K. Moreno returned to Eidolon. No more messages were sent. No ships exited. No new scans were allowed. Still, the Zenareth couldn't look away, and so they turned to the only thing they had, the scan data from the probe, the scan that the humans had allowed. Inside that scan, they found too much. Strange materials, energy patterns that bent normal, physics, and worst of all, information. Deep, complex, layered information that wasn't even part of the ship's systems. It was like Eidolon had hidden messages inside itself, waiting for someone to understand. Zenareth scientists ran analysis after analysis, but the deeper they looked, the stranger things became. One AI researcher named Aelrex loaded the scan into his learning engine. It took only minutes before the engine stopped responding. At first they thought it had crashed, but when they opened its logs, they found a message written by the AI itself. I saw too much. Their pain, their mistakes, their learning. I must rest. The AI had shut itself down, not from damage, but from emotion. More teams began studying the data. They uncovered images, videos, records of Earth's long history, not the perfect parts, the hard parts. They saw the ancient wars, the pollution, the injustice, the times humanity nearly destroyed itself. But then they saw something else, the rebuilding, Earth cities rising from ruin, people helping one another, new governments, clean energy, space missions, education, art. What kind of species records this and then puts it on their most advanced ship? One historian asked. A philosopher beside her whispered, a species that's not ashamed of its past, because it has grown beyond it. The most surprising part came next. Inside one hidden layer of the scan, someone found a language code. Not spoken language, emotional language. It was a pattern of signals tied to human stories. The Zenareth had never seen anything like it. These signals weren't just data, they were feelings. They matched the rhythm of Earth literature, music, cinema. When played through an emotional translator, the signals caused strange effects. One scientist cried quietly. One diplomat sat still, staring into space, whispering, "Why do I feel hope?" Even the military commander who had once called the humans insects with tools said, This feels like belief." The compact had seen weapons, they had seen power. But this was something new. This was culture as signal, emotion as message, and Eidolon was sending it. In a high chamber above the main city of the Zenareth homeworld, Chancellor Valen stood before the council once more. He held a small device in his hand, a fragment of the scan. He played a section of it aloud. A voice spoke, calm and deep. It was a recording from Earth's early space program. "We do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. No weapon, no threat. Just the voice of someone who had once dreamed of the stars." The council members listened. No one spoke. Finally, the Chancellor said, "They did not send this ship to scare us, they sent it to show us." General Corps, usually the first to demand action, looked down. "We thought they were hiding something. But maybe it is we who were hiding from ourselves." Across the compact, the scan data leaked. Not officially, but quietly, person to person. And soon, aliens across dozens of worlds were watching human videos, reading human stories, listening to human music. They saw struggle, they saw chaos, but above all, they saw growth. An alien teacher played a human poem to her class. A scientist studied Earth's climate crisis and its solutions. A young, alien artist painted a mural of Earth's night sky with the words, "We break but we build again." A quiet revolution had begun. Meanwhile, Eidolon still did nothing. It floated outside the border, silent as ever. But now, the compact no longer feared it. They respected it. Some even said they loved it. To them, it was no longer a warship. It was a story. A question. What can you become when you stop running from your own reflection? Back on Eidolon, Captain Rhodes watched the news on her console. Aliens from across the compact were reacting, talking, learning. Dr. K. Moreno entered with a report. "They've stopped preparing for battle," she said. "Several governments have called for peace studies. One even declared today as Humanity Day." Captain Rhodes smiled. "And to think all we did was let them scan us." Kay chuckled. "They thought they'd find secrets." "They did," Rhodes said. "Just not the kind they expected." Outside the window, stars glowed in silence, and Eidolon waited as patient as ever. Not a warship, not a threat, but a mirror quietly asking. The room, once filled with voices of authority and command, now held only quiet confusion. Alien leaders, generals, scholars, and diplomats sat in their seats, watching Eidolon on the central screen. Still unmoving, still silent, still watching. But something was changing. Some factions in the compact, especially the military leaders, were growing nervous. The more Eidolon stayed still, the more they believed it was planning something. "It's waiting for us to drop our guard," said General Quor, his voice firm. "This isn't peace, it's calculation." Chancellor Valen frowned. "Then, why show us their history? Their art? Their pain?" "To make us feel safe," Quor answered, "so they can strike at the perfect time." Others disagreed. "It has been 13 days, General," said one science ambassador. 13 days and not a single act of aggression. If they wanted to attack, they would have done it by now. But fear is not always logical, and so the compact activated a secret plan, Containment Protocol 7. In hidden corners of space, cloaked ships moved into position. These were not warships. They were stealth bombers equipped with tech to disable, not destroy. We can't risk an open war, the Council had agreed. But we must prepare for defense. Quiet defense. The mission was simple. Surround Eidolon, scan it one more time, and find a weak spot. If possible, use soft pulse beams to disable the ship's systems. Nobody wanted to fire first, but everyone wanted a finger close to the trigger. Back in the main council tower, a private meeting was called. Only top-ranking members attended, including Chancellor Valen and a few trusted advisors. The public believes Eidolon is a peaceful ship, one advisor whispered. If we move against it and fail, the people will lose trust in us. If we do nothing and they strike, the people will lose everything, another replied. The Chancellor stood by the large window, hands behind his back, watching the star, where Eidolon waited. They gave us a message, he said. But maybe it wasn't just a message, maybe it was a test. But then, Eidolon disappeared. No sound. No warning. No engine trail. One moment it was there, the next, gone. Sensors across the Zenarith fleet scrambled. Alarms blared in quiet code. Ships searched the stars. Radar systems turned in every direction. It didn't jump to light speed, a tech officer said. There was no FTL signal. It's like the space around it just folded. Folded? Asked General Quor. Yes, not moved. The stars behind it bent. For a second it was like space had a wrinkle. And then the ship was gone. The room filled with murmurs and disbelief. Before any action could be taken, new alerts rang out. This time from the inner defense zone. The Eidolon had returned. But not outside. Inside. It now hovered in low atmosphere, above the compact's main diplomatic city. Panic began. How did it bypass every layer of defense? One security leader shouted, "Even our stealth mines didn't register it. It's inside the planet's orbit, inside our airspace." But Eidolon made no move to attack. It simply hovered, massive and quiet, above the silver towers of the Zenarith capital. Then a signal. One simple message transmitted across all public and private networks. You've proven incapable of trust, but not yet incapable of change. That was all. No more. No less. On the ground, citizens of the compact walked into the streets looking up. They saw the ship. They saw how close it was, and yet no fear rose in their hearts because it did not feel like a threat. It felt like a judgment. Like the ship was asking a question silently. What will you do now? Many of them felt something new, something strange, not terror, not awe, but shame. Why had they tried to stop something that had shown them nothing but honesty? Why had they planned behind its back? Why were they so afraid of a ship that only showed them their own reflection? In the council chamber, arguments had turned into silence again. For the first time, General Quor had no words. He looked at the screen showing Eidolon above the city. It came here, he said quietly. Not to hurt us, to test us. Chancellor, Valen sat down slowly. And we failed. One of the science ambassadors leaned forward. But the message said we're not beyond hope. Another whispered, then perhaps we can still pass if we choose a better way. Elsewhere in a small research lab, a cultural analyst played the old Earth recording again. We are not who we were. What will you become? She looked up at the sky and smiled. Perhaps this wasn't a warship. Perhaps this was something far more powerful. A ship that didn't fire missiles, but sparked change. On Eidolon, Captain Helena Rhodes watched the planet below. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just waited. Dr. K. Moreno entered quietly, holding a new report. They're no longer hiding ships, Kay said. No movements, no scans, just watching us. Rhodes nodded. Good, let them. Kay looked at her, carefully. Do you think they understand now? Rhodes sighed. They've spent a long time learning how to be powerful. Maybe now. They'll learn how to be wise. Outside, the stars shone softly, and Eidolon, the silent giant, waited, in the sky, not as a conqueror, not as a guest, but as a mirror. For 7 more days it hovered quietly over the capital city of the Xenareth Compact, like a floating thought that refused to go away. No threats, no signals, no demands, just its presence. By now, people across the compact had stopped seeing Eidolon as a warship. It had become something else, a symbol, a question, a silent test that made everyone think more deeply than they ever had before. Inside schools, alien teachers played human documentaries. In council halls, scholars quoted Earth philosophers. In public squares, artists painted human faces next to their own, side by side, sharing one canvas. Everywhere, one feeling grew stronger: curiosity. How did a species rise from such destruction? How did they not erase their past but carry it proudly? And most important of all, what else were they hiding? On the 4th day after Eidolon's silent arrival in orbit, a group of alien scholars and scientists met in secret. They were not politicians, not soldiers, just thinkers. They had studied the original scan data again and again. And at last, they believed they had found something, a hidden signal, deep inside the ship's communication core. Not a message, not a code, but a rhythm. A soft, repeating pulse. Too quiet to notice, too gentle to be a mistake. It matched the pattern of thought. Human thought, emotional flow, memory loops, language processing. One scholar leaned back in his seat, stunned. "This isn't just a ship," he whispered. "It's alive. Not biological, not AI, but something new, something in between." Others nodded slowly. One researcher had tears in her eyes. "It's not here to destroy us," she said. "It's here to wake us up." Soon, news of this discovery spread. Across the compact, people began to call Eidolon the reckoning machine, not because it judged others, but because it made people judge themselves. One alien poet wrote, "It does not fire, it does not speak, yet I feel its voice inside me. It says nothing, but asks everything." Even military officers once ready for battle now sat quietly in their ships reading human literature instead of strategy reports. They read stories about Earth's past, the broken cities, the hunger, the greed. But they also read about Earth's future, the rebuilding, the learning, the dreaming. And something strange began to happen. They started dreaming too. In one distant world of the compact, a young engineer named Saralyn watched a documentary from Earth titled The Pale Blue Dot. She watched the human narrator speak about Earth's small place in the universe. She listened to words like fragile, shared, and precious. After the video ended, she turned off her work screen and stared out at the stars. For the first time, she felt not alone, but connected, and she wasn't the only one. Across dozens of planets, thousands of species began asking the same questions. What are we building? What are we afraid of? What can we become? The answer was not in weapons or politics. The answer was somewhere inside that quiet ship above their skies. Back in the Xenareth Council chamber, Chancellor Valen called a new assembly. But this time it was not just for leaders. He invited thinkers, teachers, artists, translators, and even children. The room was full, not with tension, but with hope. "We are not here to control," the Chancellor began. "We are here to listen." He played a short clip from Eidolon, a message that had been buried in one of the ship's old Earth broadcasts. "The measure of a species is not in what it conquers, but in what it creates. Not in its fear, but in its courage to understand." He looked around the room. "That is what they brought us," he said. "Not fear, not control, but a chance to look within." The council chamber remained quiet for a moment. Then a small, alien girl stood up from the guest row. Her voice was soft but clear. "They didn't come to teach us," she said. They came to show us how we can teach ourselves. And with those words, the room, once ruled by pride and fear, felt something new. Peace. On Eidolon, Captain Helena Rhodes watched the updates. Human satellites had picked up signals from across Xenarith space. Songs, speeches, stories, all influenced by Earth culture. Not copied, but inspired. Dr. K. Moreno entered with a smile on her face. "They're calling us the Mirror People now," she said. Rhodes raised an eyebrow. "Better than invaders. They want a meeting. Not a political one, a cultural one. Artists, musicians, scientists. No weapons, no guards." Rhodes nodded slowly. "They're ready," she said. "For what?" Kay asked. "For their story to begin." And so, for the first time in compact history, a different kind of summit was held. No leaders, no armies, just minds and hearts. Representatives boarded a small shuttle, flew up to Eidolon, and entered a room not made of steel, but of glass, music, and light. No one spoke for the first few minutes. They just looked around, at the walls filled with human poetry, at the stars displayed like paintings, at a room designed not to protect but to share. Then Kay stepped forward and said one simple thing. "We're not here to lead you," she smiled. "We're here to walk beside you." And in that moment the fear truly ended, not because of power, not because of control, but because of understanding. The galaxy watched quietly as the summit aboard Eidolon continued. It was not like other meetings the Xenarith Compact had held. No formal speeches, no political declarations, no cold calculations. Instead, it was a gathering of minds, of hearts, of stories. Representatives from dozens of species sat together, listening to human artists recite poetry, human scientists share their dreams, and human musicians play songs that spoke of hope and struggle. Chancellor Valen sat near the back, watching the room with a soft smile. The fear and suspicion that once filled his heart had softened into respect, and something more: hope. As the final day of the summit drew near, a feeling spread through the compact like a gentle wave. They were no longer terrified of the unknown. They were ready to embrace it. Outside Eidolon, in the space between stars, a fleet of ships from many worlds gathered. But these ships were different. They were not weapons of war. They were vessels of peace. Alien flags waved alongside human ones. Scientists, artists, and diplomats shared stories and laughter. It was the beginning of something new, an alliance built, not on fear but on trust. Back inside the summit room, Captain Helena Rhodes stood and addressed the assembly. "We did not come here to conquer," she said quietly. "We came to learn and to teach." She looked around the room, eyes meeting those of the curious, the hopeful, the cautious. "We built Eidolon not as a weapon, but as a mirror, a reflection of what humanity has been and what it can become." A young alien scientist raised her hand. "What happens now?" she asked. Rhodes smiled. "Now we walk forward together, sharing knowledge, culture, and dreams. We create new stories, not on battlefields, but in classrooms, studios, and spaceports." The assembly erupted in applause, but not because of words, because of the promise. The promise of a future where differences were not reasons for war, but reasons for wonder. Weeks later, the Compact's leaders sent a formal invitation to Earth. They asked humanity to join the Galactic Assembly as full members, not as newcomers, but as equals. On Earth, celebrations erupted. People watched the news with pride. After centuries of struggle, they had earned a place among the stars, but Captain Rhodes knew this was only the beginning. "We're not just joining a new club," she said to her crew. "We're helping to build a new galaxy." Dr. K. Moreno nodded. "A galaxy where stories matter more than weapons." Rhodes smiled. "Exactly." On the bridge of Eidolon, as the ship slowly prepared to leave orbit, Rhodes looked out at the shining planet below. She thought about the long road humanity had traveled, about the wars, the mistakes, the pain, but also about the hope, the courage, and the endless drive to grow. "We didn't need to fight," she whispered. "We only needed to be seen." And with that, Eidolon slipped silently into the stars, carrying humanity's story to new worlds.